we on? We are on.
This is Teachers Talk Radio, and you are listening live.
Hello, I am Eugene McFadden, and in the slot they've given me, this is pretty much going to be, as ever, amateur hour, because when is it ever not amateur hour with us here? Team Autism for the win. Today I am again talking to Katrina Lowry, aka @NeuroTeacher on Twitter. This is very much a continuation.
This is Teachers Talk Radio, and
Told you
are
it's amateur hour.
Live. Tune in live at ttradio.org, or to join in the conversation, download the Podbean app and search Teachers Talk Radio. Follow the hashtag TTRadio. Tune in, talk it out with Teachers Talk Radio.
Oh, I've heard there's a bit of an echo. How's that now gone? I'll turn this down. Hopefully that will work a bit better. So, where was we? Yes, this is me again talking to Katrina Lowry, aka NeuroTeacher on Twitter. This is a continuation from last month's show because we're basically getting to the good bits, the interesting bits, and we ran out of time. Although, spoilers, there were loads of other interesting bits, loads of other good bits, but we're just about getting to like EHCPs, and then it was time over. So, oddly enough, today we're looking at EHCPs. What are they? What does that word EHCP mean? What is a Section F? What is a Section A, for that matter? So Katrina's not here yet, although she has reliably told me that she will be here. So that is fine. So I thought I might start this little bit here talking to you about what EHCPs actually are, for those of you not in the know, or those of you who are not well versed in the darker arts of SEN support. And God knows there are some very complicated things around SEN support. So an EHC is Education, Health and Care, and it should be called, everyone calls them EHCPs, but it really should be called an EHC plan, an Educational Health and Care Plan. This is theoretically a legal document that outlines across a range of sections the needs of a child, and also what support should be put in place for that child. That is how it works. There's Section A, Section B, Section C, Section D, E, F, G, H, and I. H has got like an A and a B section as well, but we will get to that. Ooh, Katrina is in the studio. If she goes, invite. We sent your invite. Hello, can you hear me?
Hello, can you hear me?
Now. I can hear you.
Hello.
You sound very clear.
Yay.
I can hear you. Yay.
Brilliant.
Excellent.
So do you. That's fantastic.
Yes. Nothing's fallen apart yet. And look, someone called HB_history has given us 2 thumbs up. Yay.
Yay. Marvellous.
Thank you, HB_history. Ooh, admin person apparently. With 6,899 hearts. Wow.
That's a lot of hearts.
A lot of hearts. I've got, I think, no hearts, but there we go. So we're just last talking about, being neurologically different and a teacher, and towards the end we got onto EHCPs, didn't we?
We did, yeah, we did have a little chat about those, didn't we?
In our in a kind of roundabout, circular kind of way of talking about random things and eventually kind of looping back, eventually to the point.
Yeah.
So I thought we were quite good, and we both thought we were quite good to talk about EHCPs today in detail. And I got a fair bit of feedback from other people going, "Ooh, EHCPs, that sounds quite interesting." So here we are. Katrina, why do you know about EHCPs? Oh, she's gone. There she is. Katrina, you there? She's gone.
Hello, can you hear me?
I can hear you now. Yeah, I can hear you now.
Okay.
Yep,
sorry, my daughter rang me.
Oh, that is very nice of her.
I know, it's really lovely, isn't it? Just her timing's impeccable. I have told her very strongly that I was going to be on the radio from 5 o'clock, so ring me before 5, please. Anyway, right, EHCPs, that's what we were talking about, isn't it?
It is, yes. So what has been your involvement with EHCPs?
Many and varied, insofar as I am an experienced special needs coordinator, much like yourself.
Yeah.
So I've done it from the kind of applying from a school's perspective type of thing. I then worked for nearly 5 years for Gloucestershire as an advisory teacher. So we had the really fun task of doing the transformations from statements to EHCPs.
Oh, I remember that period of time.
Oh man, what a day! What those were days, weren't they? Oh my
Yeah,
god,
they were.
that
That
was
was
like
just
really
painful.
that was really horrific. But yeah, so when I was obviously it varies from county to county in England, and it's quite different in Wales, Scotland, and Northern Ireland. But the kind of process for it in Gloucestershire was that in order for the EHCP to go forward, you have to have an assessment from an advisory teacher, and then the advisory teacher had to do a write-up report, and then make recommendations in terms of the outcomes.
Yeah.
And at that particular glorious time, when I first started working for the advisory teacher service, we were not only doing all the new applications, but we also had to do all these lovely transformations as well, and every single one of them had to be seen and written reports for. So I think it's safe to say I've been involved in the EHCP process in quite some depth for a number of years, and I still do work with schools. I attend annual reviews with students that I work with. I have to write reports that are going to sort of feed into the EHCP process. So yeah, I've done a lot with them.
Yeah, and they are complicated pieces of pieces of paper.
Yeah.
Although I tend to keep mine saved as PDFs. But yeah, so it's interesting you say Gloucester had advisory teachers doing their kind of write-ups and reports, because
Yes.
Cornwall just was like, yeah, here's the new paperwork, there's a statement, do a review and transfer it across. Go for it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Any training for that? No. Okay.
No, we didn't really have training either, but it was just like, I think Gloucestershire is probably one of the few counties in England that still has advisory teachers. I mean, they've got rid of them in most places, haven't they?
Yeah, I think Cornwall still got like the advisory from like vision support and that kind of thing. They are advisory teachers. And I think Hertfordshire may still have a reasonably small but strong English advisory team. But
I think Birmingham has advisory teachers for, it was communication interaction team that I was in, and they have quite a strong communication interaction team in Birmingham. But other than that, I'm not really sure how many counties still have them. But yeah, so we were given that pleasure of doing all the transformations. But I mean,
yeah,
they were very fair about it. I mean, they only gave us 1 year group to do at a time.
which yeah, but how many kids is that across a year?
Oh, it's thousands,
Yeah,
and thousands and thousands, and there were 50 of us, I think, in the total team, and that wasn't just teachers. That was like Ed Sykes and everybody, and they divided the work up between us. But it was just like, I remember, like just before Christmas in 2016, I had the year fives to do, and for some reason that was the biggest year group that I had in my particular allocation. And honestly, the amount of reports I had to write, like, I had barely any time to do anything else. It was just such a horrific workload.
oh yeah, I can just imagine it.
Yeah, it was those were days, I tell you.
So should we talk about how you apply for an EHC first, or should we talk about, I mean, because that's a whole different, like that's a minefield.
Yeah.
Or should we talk about what they actually are first?
I think maybe if we talk about what they actually are and then then do like the application process.
Yeah, because that'll be a whole different, like probably there'll be some emotions. I mean, even now, just thinking about applying for them, because I've applied for many, and even now, just thinking about it, I can just feel my blood pressure rising, for sort of reasons. So, what is an EHCP? An EHCP is a legal document that outlines the needs of a child, the special education needs of a child, and other needs, and also the provision that must be put in place to support that child. Child can have an EHC up to age 25, unlike the old school statements, which ran to 18, I think, I'm pretty sure. That's right, isn't it?
That is right, yeah.
Yeah. If you go to university, though, your EHC ceases. But you could still have an EHC in, like, if you are in a post-16 provision up to age 25. So, and then we have a range of different sections of it. So the first section is section A, oddly enough, and that is the views and aspirations of the child and the parents or young person, and the parents or the young person. And that'll be like their detailed aspirations, their goals, what they want to do, their future plans, etc. Which, fine. Section B is the needs of a child, the child's special educational needs. This is where it gets a bit tricky, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Because and then so sometimes the child will have a primary need with additional needs. Sometimes it's difficult to get a child an EHC because their actual specific need hasn't been documented or detailed by, an educational psychologist or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And then
That bit is a minefield, isn't it?
that bit really is a minefield. I have seen an uptake in parents feeling forced to get private ASD diagnoses,
Massively.
which I don't feel particularly good about that. But
No, well, I think it's a bit like, actually being a neurodivergent person and having a diagnosis is a privilege, sadly.
yes,
Like I wouldn't have got so I was diagnosed as dyslexia, as I said before, like when I was 9 years old, and I was privately diagnosed because my parents are psychiatrists. So they're, relatively well off, and also they knew people. So
yeah,
they knew people who could find someone who could do a proper assessment with me and write a proper report. So I got that diagnosis, even though it was the 80s. I got that diagnosis, but you can't really get a dyslexia diagnosis anymore. It's pretty much impossible, isn't it?
it is, unless you pay. Again, you're going to have to pay privately, aren't you?
Yeah, you're gonna have to pay privately. And the same thing with autism. The various counties, I think I'm working with 11 or 12 different counties in England at the moment in various capacities, and on average it's about 2 to 3 years to get an autism diagnosis.
Yep.
But there is one county that I work with where it's 6 years.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Can you name and shame?
I'd rather not.
Okay, that's fine.
They're in a bit of trouble.
Okay. I think, to be fair, many counties are in more than a bit of trouble. And I feel, in some ways, I feel bad. I feel sorry for them because it's a funding issue.
Oh, massively, yeah.
And that's not their fault. But then that doesn't stop me being really irritated and angry about the whole thing.
No, it's wrong. It shouldn't be the case. But do you know what? Obviously, I was quite involved in the diagnostic process when I was an advisory teacher because, we stuck quite rigidly to the NICE guidelines in Gloucestershire, which was one of the good things about it. So we had these pathways, for preschool and for primary, and the advisory teachers had to be part of that process, which is in the NICE guidelines. It does say specialist teacher amongst that. So we would be part of the assessment and the ADOS process. And even if the wheels were turning perfectly and all the professionals were lined up in a row with perfect diaries kind of coordinated, it would still take at least 6 to 9 months to get a diagnosis of autism.
Yeah. One day it'll change, hopefully.
I hope so. I really do. I mean, there's a lot of innovation around, I don't know, do you know the Do It profiler?
No, what's that?
So Professor Amanda Kirkby, she's in the University of South Wales. She's invented this. It's a screener effectively, but it screens across neurodiversity. So it basically gives you a kind of a profile of need for the individual. So it can be for children or adults for that matter. And it gives you a profile of need and then gives you kind of like a set of instructions, kind of recommendations about what you could do in order to support that child. And it's actually a really good piece of evidence because, strictly speaking, as we know, EHCPs are supposed to meet the need, aren't they? It doesn't matter whether someone has a diagnosis, you can have an EHCP, but you try proving that to the LA.
Yes. Although I have had a few successes by going, that's clearly an SUMH need right there. And then we've got them over that hurdle, and then we've also got one to the ASD pathway.
That's amazing.
Which I have increasingly become a bit of a street fighter at this whole thing, which it shouldn't be that way.
No.
But yeah. So that's section B, the child's special educational needs. And so when you actually look at the application process for an EHC, it actually does say, when you actually look at the wording in the CAFA, which is Children and Families Act 2014, can you tell I quote this kind of thing to county occasionally?
All the time. I do it all the time as well. I was like,
Yeah.
yeah.
Section
Yeah.
66.8.
Yeah.
Sorry. But it's really important you do that, because then
So
they
important.
know you know what you're talking about and you mean business.
Yeah, you need to know that as a Senko or anyone who's involved in this, or even as a parent who's doing this, you need to know that legislation inside out. I have it saved to my phone so I can quote it in meetings.
Yeah.
I have bits of it memorized.
Yeah, I have bits of it. I have like a memory palace in my head, which I've had since I was like 14. I'm not copying Sherlock Holmes. I've always had one since I read about it in a book. And I've got on my desk in my memory palace, I've got the relevant sections, so that's section B, the child or young person special educational needs, and it covers all their needs should be written in that section, theoretically. By the way, you all probably those of you not involved in the SEN game are probably thinking, oh, this is a kind of standardized form. There is no standardized form.
No. Every county does it differently.
Yes.
And also, just to be really fun, whatever county you're in will change the format fairly regularly, about 3 or 4 times a year, isn't it?
We're not that bad in Cornwall, but yeah, they do change it a bit.
Yeah. So Gloucestershire used to do it about 3 or 4 times a year. So it'll be things as annoying as what was portrait is now landscape, and what was landscape is now portrait.
Oh God, I remember they did try
God.
randomly. Cornwall tried doing that for a 3-month period. They did it, and then they flipped back again, because I think everyone's just like, no,
it's
no.
just like, and the amount of flappy bits of paper you have to have in those meetings as well, it's just so irritating. They changed the format as well, and then obviously, like I said, I'm working with about 11 or 12 counties at the moment, and every single one lays them out differently.
So EHC, great idea in principle. In application, though, hasn't quite worked, in that everyone's got a slightly different format, and lays things out differently. And transferring a child, so a child might come down to my place from, like, say, Warwickshire or whatever, with a certain format to EHC, and it's like transferring it to it's just
my God, it's awful. And then they'll only provide it to you in a PDF as well, and then you've got to retype the whole thing. And I'm dyslexic anyway, and that stuff makes me want to cry.
I've got very good at the whole. I cannot recommend enough for you. Adobe Scan. There's an Adobe Scan app I got on my phone.
Yeah,
so another advert. And it takes a picture and it finds a text for you and converts it to, like, just copy and paste it.
Oh yeah, I need that in my life, actually.
Yeah, it is. It's saved me so much hassle. It's called Adobe Scan. Just an app on my phone.
I've just literally, there we go. I've got it. I've literally just looked it up now, so I've got it bookmarked now.
Boom.
Thank you. That's going to make my life a lot easier.
No, seriously, it does. I had some stuff in that came to me, like, actually not even in a PDF, just like literally paper, and it just scanned it, lifted up the text for me. It's great. Anyway, sorry, that's a whole sidetrack. Section B is the needs, and there are 4 broad areas of needs as outlined in the SEN Code of Practice. So that's communication, interaction, cognition and learning, social, emotional, and mental health difficulties, and sensory and stroke or physical needs. And theoretically, well, not theoretically, in actuality, all SEN needs, special educational needs, that's a tautology, all SEN should fit within one of those 4. At this point, for anyone listening, maybe you're thinking, hey, where does ASD sit on that one? And the answer is communication interaction, apparently. Whereas ADHD is SEMH.
Yeah, although in some counties it's CNL.
Is it?
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah. So I think, but you could argue that ASD fits in all. It fits in all 4, actually.
It does. Yeah.
So, but anyway, so theoretically, it should all be linked to those 4 things. So that's section B. All right, section C. Oh, if section B was a bit kind of like, okay, section C is like healthcare needs. So when you're applying for an EHC, county should be like contacting NHS, finding stuff out. There is a duty for that to happen. Does it happen?
No, no,
No,
no.
no, no.
It's called an education, health and care plan. And do you know what, right? I was so optimistic when they brought this in. I was just like, oh my God, that's just what we need. It sounds brilliant. You know, I really love the sound of it. I was really optimistic about it. But honestly, right, it's education, health and care plan. Honestly, it's an education plan, isn't it?
Yes. I've had conversations with my county people, and I've gone, this child's got medical needs impacting their schooling. They're like, yeah, but you can get an education, health and care plan for medical needs.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, it's what? It's
Mm-hmm.
an educational health and care plan.
Yes.
And which the statement was, well, it's about how it impacts their education. Fine, they're too sick to come to school. There you go.
Yeah, I know. Oh my God, so many times
Yep.
I've had that conversation with people. It's so frustrating. And like, you know, like I said, because of the work that I've done, particularly like over the last 10 years, I attend a lot of annual reviews. You know, I mean, it's not so much now, it's maybe like 1 or 2 a month. But like when I was an advisory teacher, I might be lucky enough to go to one a week sometimes.
Yeah.
And like the amount of times I've actually seen someone from health at an EHCP annual review, very, very rare indeed. Unless it's like a small child who was under a health visitor, then a health visitor may come. But
Maybe.
and then you'll only see social care if it's really like, you know, extreme social care needs.
Yes. I mean, social care is my next bugbear. Fashion teacher, Heineck, has said, why is the EHCP in the kind of the chat box, by the way, why is it not in a digital format with a nationally agreed parts like a CTF or EHCP?
Well, wouldn't that
Why?
be lovely?
That would. Why? Why is it not a nationally agreed way of applying? Why? Oh my God. Because it is a good idea, poorly implemented.
Yeah.
Not less than anything else.
Like most things in education, unfortunately. I mean, it's a brilliant idea, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
And like I said, I was so optimistic about it. But like there should be one format. It should be transferable from county to county. It's not even transferable from borough to borough. You get kids who are in 2 different boroughs in London, right? And they'll still have completely different formats.
That's mental.
They're in London. You know, they're like, you know, 10 miles apart, 5 miles apart, something like that.
Because they could be like a mile apart.
Yeah, they could even be. They could literally be.
Yeah. Oh, it's mental. Anyway, so there is a health element to an educational health and care plan. And theoretically, when you're reviewing a plan, someone from health should turn up if there is a health need. And I have had the school nurse team turn up occasionally. I have even managed occasionally once to get a CAMS person to turn up.
Wow.
I know.
How did you do that?
I just literally, I had my long-suffering admin, hi Nicole, if you're listening. I think one of my HLTAs is listening. She knows who Nicole is, and she's probably at this point going, yeah, poor Nicole. Basically spend an awful lot of time liaising with the CAMS person's PA to just like find a time and date. But it took a lot of like shifting rocks and other things, but we got there.
Yeah, I think you've got to be like
rigorous, ruthless, relentless.
Yeah, exactly. Like I didn't ever have an admin person as a Sanko. I certainly like we had, you know, when we were the advisory teacher service, we had like one admin between the entire team. So,
wow.
You know, we've never, I know. And there were loads of us. There was like 20, 25 of us across the whole county, something like that.
Wow.
But yeah, I mean, like I said, I think I've seen a few health visitors, and like one time, you know, if you've got kids who've got so obviously there's quite a strong sort of co-occurrence between certain kinds of hearing impairment and autism. So then you would get somebody, but they would be there only for the hearing impairment side of things, not the autism side of things. So, but that I think, in all of my years, it's been very, very rare that I've seen someone from health.
So Section D is social care.
Mm-hmm.
Social care needs which relate to their special education needs disability. Now, social care is also very rare, unless the wheels are falling off.
Absolutely.
And even then, although at the same time, I do appreciate that, those working in social care have had numerous funding cuts. They're under incredible pressure. They're dealing with really, really, really high need stuff. I understand that. It just does irritate me every so often when a child without an EHCP, but with special needs, with an IEP, say, a social worker will ring me up and go, "Can they get an EHCP?" And I'm like,
Yeah.
"What?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
What?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Have they got an EHCP? Oh my god." What's in a whole different conversation around like, at what point do you need an EHCP?
We should definitely get to that one, I think.
Oh yeah, we will. Yeah, we will. But first of all, we've got the wonderful Section E and Section F. Oh, Nick's.
God, yeah.
Oh God, yeah. This is a hard bit. Oh, Nick's chipped in again. He says, with a national format, the process could be standardised and quality of applications moderated.
That would be living the dream. Yeah, it would. Moderated would be good as well, because there are a lot of Gloucestershire won't mind me saying this, but they got absolutely hauled over the coals for the quality.
Yeah.
A few years ago, I was just before lockdown. It was like maybe 2019, something like that. Absolutely hauled over the coals for it. Because the quality isn't good, and the quality is very varied. And like I said, I'm in the fortunate position that I see a lot of EHCPs, and it's very, very variable. Very variable. Like
what? Yeah. What bugs me the most when we get to Section F is like Section F should really say things like 2.5 hours of TA time dedicated to this aspect of his learning or whatever, per week, or like 4 hours of SALT per week, something like that, yeah. But what we end up getting is an attuned adult who dances around them.
Yeah.
Or something like that.
A children's TV presenter at their every whim.
Yes. And it's like, no. So, sorry, that's jumping ahead of Section F. Section E, though, is these are the outcomes. So this is your outcomes. This is like what the result of the provision we put in place in Section F should be. Part of me always thinks Section F should come first, because anyway,
I know
but that's just me. So, and it really should be like really clear targets, really clear outcomes. I remember when we first ticked over from the statement, it'd be things like, "We'll learn to read." Like, what?
Yeah.
Okay, thanks. And it's now better. It's now by the end of Key Stage 3, we'll have access to a reading age within chronological kind of expectations, like that. And undeniably, I think Cornwall's done some good work around making the actual outcomes succinct and actually relevant and suitable.
Yeah, there was one county that I work with that had standardised ones that were kind of off the shelf, which you could slightly adapt. And I think that would make Senkos and anybody really who's involved in making outcomes lives a lot easier if there was some kind of standardized way of going about things. But again, living the dream. And that's the other thing as well. Okay, so in your opinion, roughly how many outcomes would you like to see on an EHCP?
I would like, that's a good one. I would like no more than about 5.
I like 5. That's my favourite number. So I always say between 4 and 6, which is 5.
Yeah.
I think it's mean to give somebody who already has significant needs more than 5 outcomes to achieve in an entire year, because you wouldn't give that to a neurotypical child, would you?
No, you wouldn't.
So I went to one, right, in one particular county, right, 25 outcomes.
But how do you review that? You must be there for like a day.
It took 3 hours to do the review.
Oh, I'm not very good in meetings as it is.
Nor am I.
As anyone's been to meet with me, we know. I couldn't do that. couldn't
No,
do that.
it was 25, and there's me going, right, can we just cut this down to 6 maximum, please? 6. And they're going, 6? That's outrageous. I'm going, okay, 5 then.
But like if you want one for communication and interaction, you want
Yeah.
one for like SEMH, one
Yeah.
for cognition learning,
Yeah.
one for sensory needs,
Yeah.
and one other, who knows?
Maybe independence.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe independence, or maybe 2 if it's something like, for example, if they have cognition and learning needs in maths and English, then maybe you have a maths and an English one.
Yeah. And then it's like, but again, sometimes I think the people who create this paperwork are they like paperwork. I don't like paperwork. And it's like paperwork, sometimes for the sake of paperwork, which anyway, that's a whole different conversation. So, Section F, the most controversial part of an EHC. Bearing in mind, I've also said that several of the sections are pretty controversial.
Yeah.
Section F is the provision required by the child or young person. And it should, underline should in bold, detail specific and quantified in terms of hours and expertise and all those things. Should.
Yeah.
Should. And needs to be for each and every need in Section B. It needs to be for each and every need in Section B. So we give a range of like poor failures to specify examples.
Yeah, I mean,
I can think of loads.
There are so many. God, I'm just trying to think of it's the vague and woolliness things, and like you say, it's like we'll have access to a sympathetic adult.
Yes, Pierre will have access to high-level support. What? What does that mean?
Yeah, and I don't mean to be biased, right? Because I love our educational psychologist colleagues. They're really important and they're worth their weight in gold. But you tend to get more things like that from them. I think because they haven't necessarily been in the classroom now these days, have they? When they used to always have to have been ex-teachers, I think the standard of provision was better. But then I think sometimes they can't necessarily imagine what it's going to be like because they haven't necessarily taught these days.
Possibly so. I mean, I'd argue that a good EP is worth the weight in platinum.
Absolutely. Oh my God, they're amazing. Definitely.
You know what? No, printer ink. They're worth the weight in printer ink.
Yeah. Oh God, that's what Pritt sticks.
Yeah. Oh my God. So yeah, really, really high end stuff here. But yes, I do think so. So in Cornwall, what happens is when we're actually doing the EHC assessment and it's getting to like drafting the plan, the EP team gets asked to write their viewpoints and kind of do their targets, and the school does as well, any other professionals, and 100% of the time, whatever the EP is written is what ends up in the plan.
Yeah, that's what gets on the plan.
Yeah.
Like they almost like when we were in Gloucestershire, like so the advisory teacher service, we would always do ours and then the EP would do theirs. And we'd have regularly seen the student and the EP would have seen them once and they'd pretty much cut and paste everything the EP wrote across.
Yeah. Even though it's stuff like, Pierre will have access to high level support.
Yeah.
Right. Thanks.
Yeah. No, and it's things like, oh, so-and-so will have access to fidget toys.
Yeah.
Or something like that. And you're like, well, that's not really a provision thing, is it? I mean, there's going to be fidget toys in a school anyway, really. Yeah, so what do you need the money for that?
Yeah, that's your offer. Right there, that's your standard offer.
Exactly. It's universal, that is, isn't it?
Yeah, it is, yeah. Okay, so a good example of specificity of being specific in section F could be Pierre will get 2.5 hours of TA support 1-to-1 in English lessons. And that TA will have an understanding of ASD and will be experienced to work with children with ASD. Boom. That's to the point.
Yeah, like I would always put in the specific outcome that they're trying to help them with. So, if they were doing like high frequency words, and then I would put in specifically what training the individual who was helping them with would have. So, say if the school does read, write, ink, then I would say a high quality TA who's been working with read, write, ink, say, for example.
Yeah.
Exactly. And then be really, really specific about exactly who it is. They're less likely
Yeah.
to take it. They're less likely to take it off you the next year, aren't they? You know.
Well, they are. Yeah. We'll get to the whole kind of like the LA trying to cut corners places.
Mm.
You know. So having said that, random question for you: is it possible to write in section F a therapy, like a medical therapy?
I think in terms of like mental health support, it is. Yeah, I think so. I mean, and also as well, like things like Thrive and
Yeah.
Theraplay and Thrive, those sorts of things I think can be in there. I mean, I've had things like equine therapy, music therapy,
Yeah.
art therapy and stuff written in there. So yeah, I'd say definitely, but it has to be kind of working to a specific outcome. So from E,
Yes.
you've got to have an outcome that goes with it. So, you know, if you are, it can't be as woolly as to learn to emotionally regulate or something like that. It has to be something specific, like, you know, possibly an SEMH outcome.
Yeah.
And again, you need to specify that that person is a trained music therapist and not some guy with a guitar.
And a beard.
Yeah.
And a ponytail. So yes, it can, as long as it's attached. As long as it's attached to a special educational need, that provision, so it can be a therapy. And then the LA, the local authority, has a duty to ensure provision is made.
Yeah.
Now, the other thing that they don't tell you very much is that if it is in section F, if it is provision in section F, who is responsible for ensuring that provision?
Well, it's
And the answer is
it's a legal requirement, isn't it?
it's a legal requirement, and the legal requirement falls upon the local authority.
Yes, exactly.
Which,
so, you know, so if you do have a provision that's like really specific to a particular aim, and then, you know, the funding gets taken away for that particular one, or the, you know, or whatever, then they have a duty of care to buy someone in privately.
yep, they do. They don't like people knowing about that for some reason.
Oh, they really dislike that.
Yep.
But that's why, you see, this is the thing, right? You take the county to a tribunal, you don't take
The school.
the school, not in this specific one. I mean, there's other reasons why you would take a school to a tribunal, but not for EHCPs.
No. And it's just that when I learned that, because they don't teach you this in Senko school.
No, they do not.
Senko school, by the way, for everyone who's not a Senko, is like the NAS Senko training course, which is about the code of practice and some other things, and there's some essays you write, blah, 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 blah. Fine. But they really need a bolt-on module called Getting a Kid in the EHCP.
Yeah. Yeah. Because that's all you want to know, isn't it?
Yeah. And ASD looks like this, and dyslexia looks like this, and da-da-da-da. But ultimately, it is, how to put on the metaphorical brass knuckles and go to town on county. Yeah. So you've got section G, section H, which could theoretically be H1 and H2. Section G is healthcare provision, which is obviously, so that's slightly separate from section F. Section F is provision around schools. Section G is like healthcare provision. Section H1 is social care provision, and section H2 is other social care provision. Okay, fine. I've actually never seen those three things come up.
It's like not in mainstream.
No.
I mean, like, special schools, like if you've got a child who is a looked after child and has to have a particular personal assistant provision that will support them with their education, or like, say for example, like they have to have, for some reason, speech and language therapy outside school, and they need a chaperone to take them there who's a qualified care assistant or something like that.
Yeah.
Or like there's some kids who have nurses. So like some of the special schools I've worked in, when I've worked with PMLD kids, they had nurses who were like employed by the school.
Yeah.
And then we'd do things like that, and then you'd see it. But like, for the vast majority of kids who are in mainstream, you're not going to see that section at all, really, are you?
No. So, yeah. So we've got section I, the name and type of school maintained post 16, or other institution or type of school. Nothing too controversial there, apart from the fact there's not enough special schools. That's a different.
Nope.
I think inclusion is really important, and I think we can include many pupils with good cultures and good teaching and learning.
Yeah.
But I also think there are some individuals who are always going to struggle in a large mainstream environment.
Yeah. And
And it,
my fundamental problem with that is if it's a physical need, right, or significant learning difficulties, then they'll go straight into specialist provision. If
yeah,
the child has an SEMH need or autism for that matter, really they have to fail before they can get a
yes,
special need placement. And I think that is wrong and damaging.
yes, that really is wrong, and that really is damaging. Ben Newmark has written a lot about that, about the whole kind of like the way as a meritocracy we are set up, so that like there is an element that you have to fail, and when you're applying for an EHC, you are basically going worst case scenario stuff. And there is a kind of psychic damage there, isn't there?
Yeah.
Let alone the fact that sometimes LA goes, well, we haven't got evidence they're going to fail in mainstream. It's like, okay. Parents are saying it, kids saying it, we're saying it, primary school saying it. Come on.
And then they go, do you just want to give mainstream a go? And you go,
Yeah.
no,
Give it, yeah.
no, exactly. And it's just like, I think I said this to you last time. I have literally been in like head teachers' offices where they've been in tears or absolutely distraught because their only choice to get this child a specialist placement is to exclude. No head teacher wants to exclude anyone, but they definitely don't want to exclude them just so that they can get the right provision. It's just wrong.
But, yeah, some school, yeah. And it's just so wrong that the world has gotten that way.
Yeah.
But
it's more difficult to get your child into special school than it is to get them into grammar school.
Which says something, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm. There are less special school places than there are grammar school places.
Yeah. Okay. Rah, 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 rah. Okay. So section I is name and type of school. That wasn't going to be controversial. It's become controversial. Section J is a personal budget. The details of this or any director payments agreed and the outcomes that it should support. Fine. In here we get the alleged nominal £6,000 that occasionally gets thrown around.
Yeah.
Have you ever seen the alleged nominal £6,000?
No.
No,
I haven't.
I don't think anyone has. I've never been able to pin it down where it actually exists or who's actually said. So this idea, for those who don't, one of the myths around EHC's assessment is that you've got to be spending over £6,000 on that child for the local authority to think they have additional needs enough in order to look to an EHC assessment. That is one of the myths, and it is a myth. There is no money attached to a child's needs in that way. You could spend, theoretically, there is delegated money for special needs kids, but it's not really separated out. It's all kind of very murky. And it doesn't, you can never find it on an actual, like, a column on a spreadsheet.
No, and the local authorities have like a list of the nominated SEM budget for each school, which is basically a percentage that they've taken, but it's not ring fenced.
No.
So like they'll have, this school has so many thousands of pounds to deal with SEN, and they'll look at not just the specific child, but how many children they've got with particular needs. And they go, well, they haven't got that many with needs. They can just do it out of their budget.
Yeah.
Because they've got this nominal amount of money, which isn't ring fenced. They're swimming in money. They're fine. They don't need the EHCP.
It all comes down to money, doesn't it? Anyway, Section K, the advice and information gathered during the assessment. Although a lot of that doesn't turn up in later review paperwork.
No.
But, so that's the invisible Section K. And then Section I, the name and type of school. Fine. So, and then a lot of tribunals come down to this. a parent naming a certain school on this.
Mm-hmm.
And that can be very sticky and very tricky because, special schools are expensive.
Very expensive, yeah.
Um, yeah. So that is a quick, reasonably not mega controversial overview of watching an EHC plan.
Mm-hmm.
We've completely forgotten to actually press the news button as well. Whoops, sorry. That should have been like half an hour ago. Yeah,
Yes.
whoops, got distracted. So I need to press the news button.
Okay.
Shall we? And we've got, oh my God, we've got 83 people who have said something on our chat thing as well.
Oh, right, okay.
Oh my God,
I
yeah.
haven't even looked.
No.
Sorry, people.
Oh my gosh, loads of things. Fashion teacher, variable quality seems likely to favour applications for children who are more privileged. Or a mistake.
Oh, absolutely.
That's totally true.
Absolutely.
Oh, people liking the show. Fashion teacher again. Or what about module? Get county to be accountable. Definitely.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, that would be really good in Senko qualification, yeah.
Yes, it would be. And then nodding vigorously about national provision for an investment in SEMH needs. Yes, totally.
That's huge. That really, we just need that massively, really.
Yeah, we really do. We really do. Right, I'm going to play the whatever it's called now.
To you in partnership
that
with
bit. I'm playing that bit. And I'm going to run off and wrangle my chickens into their coop because I haven't done that yet either.
Oh.
Yes. We've got chickens. We've got two silkies, one of whom's really not very bright, and some bantams. And one of the bantams, who is named after a character from Fast and the Furious 4, isn't very nice to the other bantams. All the other silkies.
Oh.
Yeah, so I need to go make sure that she's not being really mean and stopping anyone else from getting to the coop. So I'm going to press play, and I should be back, hopefully not having been henpecked, in about 4 minutes.
Okay.
Cool. Excellent. I will see you then.
A leading publisher of books, directories, educational guides and magazines specifically aimed at forward-thinking schools in the UK and beyond. Have you checked out their latest releases? Don't miss out. Visit johncatbookshop.com to explore their full range of titles and advance your own professional development today. Happy reading.
This is Teachers Talk Radio, and this is Teachers Talk Radio News.
At the National Higher Education Conference, Unison Assistant General Secretary John Richards opened proceedings with a damning critique of the government's approach towards university education, according to Unison's own website. Mr. Richards focused on out-of-touch ministers who failed to understand the current funding crisis, and pointed out that the funding models across the UK seem to be broken. He cited the issue of limited government funding as causing a de facto cap on student numbers, and accused the government of trashing the UK's reputation for higher education in Europe, leading to big drops in the numbers of overseas students. A story covered by Teachers Talk Radio News last week. Mr. Richards went on to assert that those in government do not understand the cost of living crisis because they've never had to face it. Strike action by those working in the HE sector has been part of a wave of action taken by unions across a range of public sectors in recent weeks. The last week saw the release of details of government plans to revamp children's social care in England. BBC News reported on the plan for more early support for families and the extra £200 million funding for the next 2 years. Last year, a review warned that tens of thousands more children could end up in care without additional funding and reform. The plan has faced criticism that many of the changes are being rolled out as localised pilots rather than a national programme. The government plans to put families at the heart of the reform and intends to provide better support for all vulnerable children in order to reduce the need for crisis intervention. There will be pilots in 12 local authorities which will deliver more early support for families struggling with addiction, domestic abuse and poor mental health. There will also be more family-type placement for children in care with relatives, friends or foster families. Other changes include plans to recruit more foster carers, a simpler process and more support for relatives or friends who take on children, a rise in the leaving care allowance, and support for councils to recruit and retain more social workers. Economic, Constitutional and Social Policy Forum Politia has published an article focusing on its views of the proposed changes to the school's history curriculum. The publication, History, Whose History? The Battle for the School Curriculum, features 3 historians' views on the proposals. The government's plan for reform came in response to recommendations from the Commission on Race and Ethnic Disparities. The plan for a new model history curriculum for pupils to see themselves as integral parts of what makes up the UK today was proposed. The essays included in the publication focus on the responses of a variety of academics who all appear to conclude that there is no need for the proposed changes, because diversity is already built in the current programme. Further details of the publication and forum for debate can be found on the Politia website. Finally, a school principal in a rural part of Northern Ireland has expressed concerns over safety after it emerged that recruitment of lollipop men and women is being frozen. It comes as part of a drive to save money. The current power-sharing deadlock in Stormont meant no budget could be agreed and significant cuts needed to be made. The principal of a rural primary school, Donna Winters, told the BBC that until recently there had been consistent crossing patrol staff that have been vital in making sure pupils can cross roads safely, but that they have not had staff since December. The school has had to resort to employing a patrol staff member directly and, when they are absent, teaching and support staff have to fill in. Ms Winters went on to point out that safety was not an area where cuts should be made. This has been your Teachers Talk Radio News with Joe Fox.
This is 2 Minute Tech with Steve Woods, your tech briefing on Teachers Talk Radio.
Hello, it's Safer Internet Week, with the official day being on the 7th of February. This year, the UK Safer Internet Centre focuses on Want to Talk About It, making space for conversation online. They've got loads of educational resources on the website saferinternet.org.uk, banded into 3 to 7, 7 to 11, 11 to 14 and 14 to 18 years of age. They are even translated into Welsh and have adapted resources for SEND and ALD. So, they have pretty much covered all bases. You need to take a look. But why do we need to get our young people talking about this? Well, let me try and give you an idea in one breath. With an estimated 5.16 billion people using the internet, that's 64.4% of the world's population. It's estimated that around 500,000 predators pose a threat to young people daily, with the main target being 12 to 15-year-old children. With a quick search of statistics from the internet, I found supposedly 1 in 25 children will be manipulated in some way this year, and 80% of predatory behaviour will be through social media. This coupled with only 15% of parents actually knowing what their children are doing online makes this an issue which definitely needs to be talked about with our young people. To get some perspective on this, every 60 seconds TikTok users watch over 167 million videos. Data never sleeps. We need to know how to stay safe because the sheer volume of data means it cannot effectively be policed. Please send your thoughts amongst the 575,000 other posts every 60 seconds on Twitter at TT Radio Official. I'm Steve Woods, and that was 2 Minute Tech.
2 Minute Tech with Steve Woods, your tech briefing on Teachers Talk Radio.
Oh, excellent. And we are back. Katrina, you still there?
Yeah, I'm still here. How are the chickens?
They are actually. I ran outside to like herd them in, and it seemed that like one of my kids has already done it for me.
Oh,
Boom!
Brilliant.
That is a success story right there. Yes.
Absolutely.
So we were discussing EHCs, and we kind of ran through the whole kind of like the what should be in a plan, and how what should be in a plan is sometimes what's not in a plan, but you know. That's how it is, annoyingly. And we touched upon a few of the kind of more controversial aspects. Shall we now talk about the most controversial bit, which is applying for an educational health and care assessment?
Yes, absolutely. And I think the number one thing is, like you said at the beginning, make sure you know that legislation backwards, forwards and inside out before you do that. If it's your first go,
Yep.
put some time aside to know that because it's
Yep.
going to save you a hell of a lot of time and effort later. And probably if you're applying for one EHC, it's probably not going to be your last, even if it's your first. So
No.
yeah, take the time to get to know the legislation. Helpful.
Oh, that is fine. Can you hear a beeping noise in the background?
Yes.
Yeah, that is. It appears someone set off the fire alarm upstairs.
Oh.
That's really unhelpful.
Oh
Damn it.
dear.
Oh dear. That's okay. I'm sure they're now open up windows for me. Or they're doing something. Yeah, it's going away. Do you want to talk? I'm just going to turn my microphone off. Do you want to talk briefly about how someone would apply for an EHC assessment?
Yeah, sure. Basically, you have two options. You can apply as a school or you can apply as a parent. I would say that even though it's going to take you a lot of work, it's better for you to do it as a school because it's easier for you to pull all the paperwork together than for the parents to do so.
This is true. However, go on.
Parents' ability to do this varies, though, doesn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. And I was, by the way, the fire alarm's gone off now.
Okay.
Yeah. So I could just I heard some frantic like window opening and some kind of flapping with a tea towel. So I presume that's okay. Having said that, so you apply to county for an EHC assessment, and there are only 2 legal tests that county should be applying, and that's where it kind of falls down because there's only 2 legal tests, and whether they apply them or not is a different question. And then maybe they then say they've done a refusal to assess, but if they do a refusal to assess, they have to give a right to appeal at a tribunal.
And they never win the appeal.
Well,
I say 95% of the time it's going to go in favour of the parents, isn't it?
I heard 97%.
Yeah, it's a lot though, isn't it? Either way, it's a lot, isn't it? So there's really no point in them going through the whole malarkey. Have you been in tribunal?
No, because when I have supported parents to go to tribunal, it doesn't get there because after 2 weeks, can't you turn around and go, okay, fine, we'll assess.
Yeah, no. Usually they do, and it's been a rarity that I've been, but usually, it's like we're all just here to rubber stamp this. It's going to go in favour of the parents.
Yeah.
So what is the point of going through this? Because even the government's own statistics say it's like 95, possibly even 97% chance of going in that, which is why they say no, keep going.
Yes. All the time. All the time.
They're definitely well, okay, not definitely going to say no. There's a really good chance they're going to say no, but keep going. Because if you know that the child needs an EHCP, you're probably right.
Yeah. And to be fair, and I think I'm trying to get my county people to get the idea that if I'm ringing up saying this child needs an EHC, the chances are they need an EHC. Alas, they haven't got to that point of figuring out that I will go away yet. I won't go away, rather. It's like, I literally said to them, look, I'm really autistic. When I get things in my head, I don't back down.
Yeah, that's a good thing, though. It's for the kids.
It is a good thing. It is a good thing. I've been really over. It's like, your paperwork's terrible. I'm not going to do your paperwork. It makes me have a headache to fill in your paperwork. So I'm going to do my own paperwork and and hand that in instead. So yeah. Anyway, so county should theoretically apply only 2 legal tests once you apply for an EHC. The 2 legal tests are: does the child maybe have SEN needs, and do they maybe need provision for those SEN needs? That's it.
And it is kind of as vague as that. Have you ever sat on panel?
I have sat. I have not. I've not sat on the panel to assess, but I've sat on the panel where they kind of go to confirm. That makes sense. And it was eye-opening in how. Yeah, because I didn't have any paperwork. They didn't give me any paperwork. I just watched them on the screen go, this feels like 4 units. Yeah.
Yeah. It's interesting to do because this is the thing as well that I think a lot of Sankos, special needs teachers, don't realise is you can go and observe panel and it's you make an appointment and you can do it, and there's no reason why you shouldn't be allowed to do that, and it's kind of part of your CPD.
Yes, it
And
is.
once you get that you've done it, also as well, like if you are working in a particular county and you get there, that usually it's the same kind of group of people, or like, there'll be like a pool of people who will do it.
Yeah.
And it'll be like, every second Tuesday or whatever. If you go and do that, then you know the names of those people and they've seen you. And that definitely helps because, there's the who you know thing. So if you have got the option to do so in your county, then ask to observe. It's definitely worth a morning out of school to do.
Oh, it really is. It was eye-opening for me. It was also a bit frustrating.
It is frustrating because you think, oh my God. And the other thing is as well, like, I don't know about where you are, but do they have like a matrix where they like measure the child up against a sort of set of rules?
I think they did, but they didn't show it to me, which I found, again, frustrating. The most frustrating thing is they don't keep minutes.
No,
which
don't.
I find really, this is like a meeting that's got kind of like a legal basis, and they don't keep minutes about who say stuff.
No, they don't.
And I think, and I keep saying, why don't you keep minutes? And they just, we just don't keep minutes. We're not required to. And if I was, education secretary, and one day I hope to be,
you'd be good at it as well.
Thank you. I have a reason why I want to be education secretary. So my partner's name is Monday, Munday, and my name is McFadden. And when we get married, I really want, eventually get married, I want to portmanteau our names. None of that like hyphenated. I want to be called McFunday.
That would be brilliant.
Exactly. And my partner thinks it's a terrible idea. But I eventually wore her down so that she said, if you get into House of Lords, you can change your name and my name.
That would be so good.
So basically, I want to become a head teacher so I can become like a CEO, so I can get myself into House of Lords eventually, or get into Department of Education, blah, 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 to get into House of Lords. And the day I'm in the House of Lords, I'm going down the road to like whatever that place is where you change your name, and I'm going to become Lord McFunday.
It's quite easy. I changed my name. It's quite easy to do. So it's deed poll, and you just send away. You just send away for it and get someone to sign it and send it back. It's really easy to do.
I'll do that.
Costs like 60 quid or something, and then
well worth it. Lord McFunday. Boom.
Yeah. Oh my God, that's an amazing name.
Yeah, it'd be well good.
Yeah.
So, but she's like, you can't do it in the House of Lords. Fine. So.
Well, it's something to aim for.
It is a life aim. It's nice to have a life aim. That's what I want to do. And every so often I bring it up to her, and she just gets worried that I'm going to become a lord at some point, because I want to get things stuck in my head. So yeah, how do we get onto this? Oh yeah, well, if I was in charge of education, first thing I'd be like, right, EHCPs, you're taking minutes in those, and they're going to be publicly available.
Yeah, I think so. I think that would be a massive difference because, to be honest, it's not as organised as you might think, and.
No. I don't think it's very organised at all.
No, it isn't, and it's a massive eye opener. Basically, if you want to see how humans are, then go and watch an EHC panel, right? And you will understand the humanity of humanity, because they don't really know any more than you do, right? And so they have some counties. Okay, so when I was in Gloucestershire, we went in and out with this of having a matrix or like some kind of algorithm type of thing to work out whether a child should have a particular assessment. And then we had another one, which was criteria, which was like how much they should be allocated in terms of their budget. And that was worked out when, if you say like it was a year 5 autistic ADHD boy from the Forest of Dean, this was the average amount of money they got, and then decide whether they should be above average or below average from it, like by using the statistics from the last 5 years, which is completely ridiculous way to work out how much a child needs, because Timmy needs a different amount of money to Mohammed, who needs a different amount of money from Barry. Do you know what I mean? It's just
it would be good if they read the actual provision. And if the provision was like really specific, it'd be really clear.
Oh yeah, I was absolutely astounded by doing this. This is what I'm saying. Like, if there was any Senkos or potential Senkos or SEN teachers or assistant Senkos or anybody's even thinking about it, it's worth the morning out of school to go and
It is.
observe panel, because it's gonna open your eyes.
Yeah, it is just really. Oh, it's just frustrating. It's the whole kind of like, this child feels like it needs 4 units.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, what?
They've never met. Also, just to be clear, they've never met the child. They've probably never even been to the school.
No.
And they don't know the Senko or anybody.
No. Although when I was on panel, they were like, "Oh, we've heard of you." Oh, good.
Yeah, that's a good thing. That's
That is
what
a
I'm
good thing.
saying. If you can see the whites of their eyes, then, you know, if you do have to make phone calls or write stuff or something like that, and they go, "Oh yeah, oh yeah, I remember they were that person on panel who said we should take minutes."
Yeah, and then
Oh, they
kept
know what they're
making their own
talking about.
notes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Oh, because I did as well. I made my own notes.
Yeah, of course you do. I'm just recording this. Don't mind me. Oh, it shouldn't be this way. This is the future of like children. This is their lives.
I know, and it's awful, right? And I do a lot of parent support as well. Like, I do a lot of training with like parent organizations and charities that do parent training, and it always comes up about this.
Yeah.
Always. And I just go, you know, I mean, how are they making their minds up about this? And I go, well, it's not as scientific as you might hope or think. It's not even as bureaucratic in a good way.
No, it felt a bit. It was what, you know, when I was on panel, I was just like, wow, this is like a Terry Gilliam
Yeah.
film.
Oh yeah, it's like that. It is like
It's like that.
Yeah.
It's just like, yeah. Anyway, so there are some myths.
Mm-hmm.
One that we discussed previously, which is like
The
that
£6,000.
the £6,000 myth, which is just like a zombie statistic myth,
Mm-hmm.
or like a vampire. You keep sticking that thing in the grave, and it keeps coming back. Although my county has stopped quoting that to me now.
That's the thing. Once you prove to them that it's not actually a thing, then they
Yeah.
do kind of go, oh yeah, no, this is this guy. He doesn't know. He knows what he's talking about. Which is why I'm saying, spend some time reading through the legislation, save it to your phone, highlight certain bits, make sure you can quote it in the meetings, give the information to parents so they can quote it in their own emails, etc. And do that and go to panel with me. My 2 kind of top Senko tips, really.
Yeah, definitely. Another myth is that you need a report from an education psychologist.
No, you don't.
Cornwall was, up until someone became really awkward about it, saying that to Senkos. They've stopped saying that now.
Mm-hmm.
Because I basically written, no, I'm not doing that. They don't need that. That's not required. So that's good. Another myth is that you need at least 3 terms worth of assessment plan do review.
No, you don't.
You don't. And there is no set format for what an assessment plan do review looks like.
No, there isn't. It's like some counties will have like prescribed ones. So like some places have like my plans or like IEP thingies, whatever they call them. They call them different things in different places, but you don't have to use their paperwork and you don't have to have done it. And also as well, evidence can be backdated. So if you've got like a year 7 coming in, then you can bring information that's from year 6 and 5. Obviously, there's been some kind of transition from primary school, so it's completely valid to use that information.
Yeah.
You know, likewise, if you're in a middle school or they've moved into like a 6th form college or an FE place, you can use information from the previous setting. Don't sit there with a kid for 3 terms,
God, no. So I have made county admit to me, poor Cornwall Council, they just don't know how to cope with me sometimes, I think. But I've got them to admit in writing that you don't need to do an assessment plan do review. And if you did need to do it, you haven't got to do it in a set format. And then so there was one situation where I basically did a really detailed chronology of this kid. I've like worked out what was wrong, put a plan together. They're kind of like a narrative. And I literally wrote in it like, this was a problem, this is what we planned to do, this is what we did, we reviewed it on this date, these are the changes we made. And it was just like a kind of rolling chronology, which is kind of how I think, like a narrative, as opposed to those bloody assess plan do review grids.
Oh God, that's so annoying.
oh, it's just like, that's not how anyone or maybe there are. No, maybe some math teachers think that way. But I don't know anyone else that thinks in terms of those assess plan do review grids properly. But anyway, so I did my chronology thing, and they came back with, oh, it's not an assess plan do review, and I was like, really? Did you not read it? They're like, it's more like a chronology. Really? What do you think an assess plan do review is, if not a chronology?
It's a chronology. It literally is another word for chronology. Do you know when they oh god, it was a long time ago, wasn't it, when they started doing those lovely diagrams, which were the assess plan do review kind of thing, which is what we've been doing for years anyway. And I just went, oh, you mean a chronology?
Yeah.
And they went, oh no, it's a assess plan do review cycle. It's the
Yeah,
same.
a
It's
cycle.
the same thing.
That's a chronology. It's
Exactly.
like where you started, what happened in the middle, where you ended up.
Exactly.
So, and then I went, who said it? Yeah.
Really, as long as they can read it and understand what you did, then they should accept it.
Yeah. They should accept it. And if they don't accept it and they reject it, you go to tribunal.
Yeah.
So there we go. I can just feel my blood pressure rising thinking about this and talking about this.
I know, but I actually think, just looking at the comments, I think we are like, and there'll be a lot of people who listen back to this as well. I think it's going to, I'm really hoping that it's going to help.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering about if we should do like a little blog about it as well, Eugene.
Yeah, that'd be quite nice on we do a joint blog. Yeah, I'm happy to do that. Something along the lines of like, really awkward things to say to people. As you look them in the eye. Not really. I don't do eye contact.
Nor do I. It's overrated.
It's so overrated. I don't. Oh my god! And then you get like EHCPs, like, and it's like we'll make eye contact for some kid. It's like, oh my god.
That's just awful, isn't it?
Yes. Although on the back of our last pod, this is a podcast, is it a radio show? Whatever the heck.
A bit of both, isn't it?
It's a
pod radio show.
Yeah, I just realised I spelled Saturday wrong. The Sat-Uday Twilight Show, Owl. On the title of this thing, I'll fix it later on. Nice. So yeah, on the back of it, I was like, there's so much ableist language in these EHCs. So whenever I'm reviewing them now, I'm crossing things out and leaving a little note saying, this is ableist. You need to change this. So.
Oh yeah, I mean, they're very deficit model based.
Yeah.
They're very or medicalized language, and they're inherently ableist. And it's just things like, there's also things that are just kind of like, okay, so for example, I worked in a specialist school, and I had these children who were autistic but also had severe learning difficulties, like, in the old money, they would have been like P4 to P6, like,
yes,
really, like, And one of the EHCP I saw for this girl was, we'll learn to play imaginatively with peers. No, she's not. She's never going to do that, right? But she plays and she has a lovely time and she interacts with peers in her own way, but she's not going to play dollies with them, is she? And she's not going to play house, and she's not going to play, cops and robbers or whatever with them in the way that you think a neurotypical peer should do. She plays with her peers, and she plays, and she's having a lovely time, and she's learning an awful lot from it. But she's not going to play My Little Ponies with them, is she?
I think that cuts to the crux of the problem with EHCs is sometimes what they're doing is they're trying to create a quote, and I'm doing quote marks, a normal child.
Yeah, that's what it is. It's trying to make, right. So basically some of them read, this child will become more neurotypical, but they won't. Or just more typical, but they won't.
Yeah. And I think it's that deficit model. It's like, we want them to not be them anymore. We want them to be like everyone else. And I think, and that comes from like, exam pressure, and it comes from like to set up a system and all those things. But it's that kind of underlying meritocracy of like, if you just worked harder, kid, you will have different genetics. So what? That's, which is really, really hard. And yeah, I do think. I mean, Ben Newmark speaks so powerfully on this. Have you seen the stuff he's written?
Yeah, I've just bookmarked it again, and I had a quick look when you were out with the chickens, and there's a lot of sense talked here.
Yeah,
I need to go into it in a bit more depth, actually.
yeah.
But
I mean,
yeah,
I feel. I mean, I'm not. Yeah. So my sister is like, much as people don't talk about like the spectrum as a continuum anymore. Well, they do, but anyway, my sister is the far end of the continuum. So she will never live independently. She will, she's incredibly knowledgeable about, the Outer Limits TV show and Looney Tunes, Disney movies, and
Awesome.
also the Wildcats, which is something she watched on YouTube, which is like, I don't even know what the hell it is, but and that's the topic of the conversation, and she's perfectly happy talking about those things. And she knows them really well, but she will never live independently, and that's fine, you know. But growing up, my mum grew up in like a very poor part of Ireland, like literally an island off the coast of Ireland. And mum left home at 16 to come to like London to get a job.
Wow.
And this the sheer pressure on my mum of having a disabled daughter in a very Catholic environment where it's seen as being like a punishment from God.
Gosh.
Yeah, a lot of like that kind of weight. I mean, I don't think we recognise how much societal weight there is sometimes, like hidden societal weight around disability.
Yeah, and it is, and it's just like I said, I do a lot of work with parent training recently, and I had like a cohort of foster parents like last week. My God, it's so eye-opening working with them because they're so skilled and so knowledgeable, and they love those kids. It is their job, but they love those kids, and just the way that they get knocked back and treated. And one woman said she was really upset because she went for a walk with her dog. Her partner was at home with the kids. She went for a walk with her dog just to get out for like half an hour. And this woman who saw her went, "Oh yeah, you're the one with those delinquent kids in your house, aren't you?"
Oh,
And it's just like, that's really heartbreaking, isn't it? Like, they've
yeah,
already been binned and they're like 6 and 7. And like I was saying earlier about like, in order to get a place in a special school, there are less special school places than there are grammar school places in this country, right? You know how hard it is to get into grammar schools. Like we had grammar schools in Gloucestershire. People would come from Oxfordshire every day and Swindon every day to get to have their kids in a grammar school. That's hours of journeys every single day for these kids because that's what they wanted to do. It's the same sort of thing with special schools. Like they can very regularly be getting a taxi for over an hour each way every single day, right? And you can imagine like any other kid having to do that because there isn't the provision in a county. And then they've had to be excluded often from their mainstream school, which is all they know, and it's failed because really no fault of their own. And then everything with the parents as well. The parents have got to fight every single step of the way. We as teachers, as special needs and Senkos and Alenkos, and we've got to fight every single step of the way. You've got a fight in your hand. As soon as you think that child is in the EHCP, you're like, right, roll the sleeves up. Come on then.
it is. And the language we end up, I use language as a street fight.
Yeah, it is. That's what it is. That's what it is. And like you have, like if you're somebody listening to this and you are thinking of becoming a Senko, then it's that kind of old Buddhist kind of saying about you need an open heart and a strong back.
Yeah.
To do this, right, you need to be absolutely 100% certain and have full compassion for that child and that family that this is what you're going to do and you're going to do it. And you need to have a strong back because everybody is going to try every single time to trip you up and to not give you this. This is not going to be easy, right? But it's the right thing for the child, and that's why we do it.
Yeah, and it is. Yeah, and it shouldn't be that way.
It shouldn't be that way. It should not be that way. And we should be assessing on need. And also as well, as teachers, we should be trusted to know. And that's why I'm saying, like, things like the Do It Profiler, I think if we had some kind of like big screening program that we could do with children, not for necessarily every single child, but if you suspected a child had neurodiversity and there was a screening program available to you, you can go, right, this is what the needs are. Okay, so we're going to meet those needs within the capacity that we've got, but you can quite easily prove using data that hasn't happened. That data just goes straight to county, and county go, here you go, extra provision. Shouldn't be any of these hoops to jump through, etc.
No.
If a child needs something, it should happen. And if a child needs to go to specialist provision, that should happen way, way, way before it gets to the point where they have exhausted all their opportunity at mainstream school. They shouldn't have to be excluded in order to get into specialist provision.
Yes, because we do know that exclusion, or suspension of exclusion, does have a negative impact upon child's lives.
Yeah, it does. And then, you've only got to go to the Timpson report. I know it's quite controversial and some people don't like it, but the thing that sticks in my mind, and probably the most persuasive part, is exclusion over the lifetime of somebody costs £375,000 to the taxpayer.
That's a lot of money.
Yeah.
But if we get things right early enough, I mean, so let me just tell you a depressing statistic about Cornwall right now. Guess where the nearest special school place to Cornwall is right now? Because everything else is full in Cornwall. Everything is full in Cornwall.
Got it far then, yeah, is it?
The New Forest.
No way. That's like 4 hours away.
Yeah. That's like, if that kid needs to go to a special school, the family's got to move. Well, literally, yeah. Yeah.
Do you know, if I wasn't on the radio, I would swear a lot about that, Eugene. That's disgusting.
Yeah, I found that out yesterday. I was like, I swore a lot then. Yeah.
That's disgusting. That is just like, I mean, I'm sure it's a lovely school and all.
Yeah, I know it is. I'm sure it is. But like, that is a failure of leadership. I mean, what should we talk about? Lack of funding. That's a failure of leadership.
Mm-hmm. And it's just things like, are you not counting how many kids? Because we know that, it varies slightly from county to county, but it's about 14% of kids are going to have identified needs.
Yeah.
Right. So we know, and of those, we can say statistically speaking that, probably about, between 2 and 5% of those are going to need specialist provision. So why don't we have 2 to 5% of the school places being specialist provision? And we know there's 4 sets of needs. So why don't we just divide it is that too sensible?
So, that's what I'm saying. It was like that lack of that lack of foresight, lack of vision, that mindset, I think, which is moving now, that mindset of like, well, if they tried harder, they'd do better.
Yeah, and it's just not the case. And the other thing is as well is the idea that children can quite easily come off an EHCP. Like county are always trying to get them off an EHCP when they have got them, right? And your job in the annual review is to make sure that you keep the provision,
yes,
or preferably get more.
Yes,
and that's probably like a whole other conversation. But like they are every single year they're going to try and say, well, but he's made such great successes now. I mean, look how he could barely read before, and he's gone up 6 months, and
yes, because of doing all these things which cost money. Yeah. Oh, it is just. Oh, yes. It shouldn't be the way it is, and yet it is. And like, yeah. And I increasingly feel that, when I'm education secretary, no, it's gonna fall apart by then. I don't know if it's better to burn the system down or wait for it to fall apart, because I don't think the system is fixable anymore.
I don't think it is really. Unfortunately, it's been that way. It's been looking that way for probably about 10 years. And now we're just at the point where, teachers are completely exhausted. We've got no resources. And because of the way funding's been done for the pay rise, it's just eaten into schools' budgets. So that means that they're going to start looking for more money in other places. It means they're less likely to be able to provide for children within that magical, a designated SEND budget, which isn't ring fenced.
The normal £6,000.
Yeah, exactly. And there's going to be more EHCPs applied for.
Yes.
And it's, and the other thing is as well, the whole 20 weeks, the fact that it takes 20 weeks.
Does it take 20 weeks?
No,
I mean,
it takes more than 20 weeks, but it's supposed to take 20 weeks.
It's meant to take 20 weeks. Cornwall is currently, I keep talking about Cornwall because it's what I know right now. Cornwall is currently about 6 months behind, I think, 7 months behind.
that's probably about average in terms of counties. I tell you what, we were talking about moving from one place to another, right? So I had 2 brothers who'd moved from America, and it was a really sad story as well. They just had to leave, kind of thing, because of
Yeah.
family situations. And when they go and live with grandparents in Gloucestershire, they had been on IEPs in America, and those ones, they are like watertight American IEPs. I don't know whether you've ever seen them, but they're
No, I haven't. No.
pretty good documents, actually. They're worth looking up, because that's what we should be having. They had those. They've been in specialist placement, right? But we
Yeah.
had to start the whole process again,
Oh,
right? These kids have been in specialist provision in America, and we had to send to a state school and then go through the entire process of application, like as if they had nothing, because according to Gloucestershire, they had nothing, even though they had all this documentation since they had been little tiny kids. It's just ridiculous. And if a child comes from like Poland or Czech Republic or, Dubai or something like that, then you just, even though they might have like brilliant paperwork from their previous country, you've got no chance. You've still got to go through the whole process of applying from scratch for an EHCP.
yeah. Which is absolutely mental.
It's wrong.
It's deeply wrong. Oh, we're actually leaving it on like quite a downer note.
Okay, but there's things you can do though.
There are things you can do. So first thing to do is listen to this podcast. Second thing you can do is memorize the law. Don't memorize the law. Memorize the relevant parts of the law.
Yeah.
If you want to know where relevant parts of the law are, well, I've said them before, but also go to the IPSIA website and they will tell it to you. It's all there for you. Memorize those parts of the law, and when you start having conversations with a county, quote those parts of the law.
A lot. And tell parents too as well.
Yeah, definitely. Tell parents too. And tell parents success rate at tribunal is really high. And that's just for cases that get to tribunal. Because there's so many cases that don't get to tribunal because county go, you know what, we're not going to win that one.
Yeah, and even if you go, if they offer you mediation as well, if you actually do have to go to mediation, again, like you've got like a 95% chance that you're going to win mediation.
Yeah.
You just have to go to a hotel and eat their biscuits for a bit. It's not that bad going to.
And they're quite nice biscuits.
They are quite nice biscuits, yeah. And you get the tiny pencils and the little bottles of water. It's not a bad day out, really. And they go, so what do you think? And you go, I think we should do what the parents think. And they go, oh yes, that's very interesting. And then everyone goes, okay, well, I'll assess now.
It's terrible, isn't it?
It is,
absolutely
but,
terrible.
the loops you have to jump through. So that's the thing also as well, like keep talking to the parents, and you've got to be like that person who stands in the corner of a boxing ring for the parents,
Yes.
don't you?
Yes.
And go, definitely. Come on, right, we're going to go to the next. They're gonna try and knock us down, but we're not going to be knocked down. I'm in your corner.
You've got to be Jimmy from Rocky.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Got to be there,
throughout the whole process.
Yeah, all of it. Just because it is, because much as it's annoying for us, it's 1,000 times worse for the parents.
Oh, it's heartbreaking for them. Yeah.
And I'm thinking about some parents now. I've actually got a headache from just thinking about the pain that they have been through and they are going through.
Yeah, and it is literally painful. But once you do get the provision, and you will get it, it's going to be a long journey and everything. But once you do, then you can start doing that, and it can make quite. The reason that it's worth doing is because it will make a significant difference to that child and that family's life.
Yeah, and yeah.
And you'll feel such a sense of achievement when you see them 1 year on at the annual review, and you go, "Oh my God, look how far we've come."
Yeah, and I think we talked earlier on, in our kind of cyclical way, about having like only a few like targets in Section E, few outcomes, and I firmly feel that one of the SEMH outcomes should be the child is happy.
Yes, I totally agree with you.
And we don't. I've never seen that. I might stop writing it in. Screw it.
You may as
the
well.
next review. I think because it's really important that we have that. By the end of Key Stage 3, Davey will be happier than he currently is. But yeah,
you want them to want to come to school and enjoy it, don't you?
Yeah, that's it. And that's attendance. Attendance is the canary in a coal mine. They ain't turning up. They don't want to turn up.
you can't help them if they're not turning up either, can
Yeah.
you? You know, like persistent absence. It is a bit of a thing of mine, as you know. I do write about it quite a lot.
Yeah.
Persistent absence, like you say, it's the canary in a coal mine. They're
Yeah.
going to vote with their feet, aren't they?
Yeah, but if you look at the absence data right now for England, we are, as an average, the country is in PA.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It's ridiculous. The statistics are ridiculous. Even from when I did my research, like, you know, I had a publication about it a couple of years ago. But even since then, it's just ridiculous now. Like how how poor attendance is. And then when you go down into those kids, you know, SEN kids are, you know, identified SEND is 56% of those children, and of the rest of them 43% are being assessed.
So something's going wrong in our systems.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
In our school, and it's like you look at it and you think, where's that coming from? And then you look at this things that are done and I'm an over attendance. I think attendance is really important, and I work very close to my attendance team, but it's about removing barriers.
Yeah.
But I have seen some schools, not my own, because we're doing a bit, you know, but I've seen some schools where the approach is they're not coming to school. It's like we must whip them harder to get them into school. We must threaten them to get them into school. It's the whole thing of like, until morale improves, beatings will continue. Like, well, it is that.
Yeah, there is that. That's just like, it's not, you know, it's, you catch more flies with honey, you know, that kind of thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
Make school a nice place to be, bend a little tiny bit, and then once they're in, you can, you know, I always talk about rubber boundaries, you know? It's not that you're still going to have really high standards, don't get me wrong. High standards are massively, massively important, but you're also going to have really high levels of support.
Yes. And that's the important bit. It's that support, and it's the kids feeling included and feeling, you know, that you want them there.
Yeah, and they've got to be part of the community.
Yeah.
They've got to feel like they are part of the school community. They've got to be proud to wear that uniform.
Yeah, that's it. Pride. Yeah. Oh, here's a one for you, Senkos, out there. It's the kind of thing I do because I'm just a bit funny about tracking things. Do you track engagement of SEN kids in after-school activities and trips in general?
Yeah.
And if you're not doing that, you are missing a trick.
Yeah, it's really, really interesting also as well. Like I went to this one school I worked at this one school for a few years that had like an award from the government about how good the kind of extracurricular provision was. One of the reasons why they thought they'd done so well is because they had like this points-based system where, you know, you'd have the number of merits and the number of times you had attended an after-school club and all that kind of stuff, and it would add up and you get this bronze, silver or gold thing. So at the end of the year, you could have an extra non-uniform day or an extra school trip or whatever, you know, those kind of reward thingy-majiggles. And like basically when I went to the school, SEND kids never won that award. They never got their reward day because they weren't attending, because the clubs and things weren't necessarily accessible for them, and they didn't have the confidence to go to them. They didn't think it was for them.
That's sad.
It changed, you know, over the time that I was there, and you know, with the whole Senko team, we worked on it, and it changed, and it improved an awful lot. But you know, you do need to be tracking that kind of stuff. It's massively. It's part of that's. You'll remember the school trip that you went on to that castle that time, but you won't remember what you did in maths on that wet Wednesday in November.
No.
Sorry, maths teachers.
This is a good one.
Love the subject. Oh yeah, I mean, it might have been the best math lesson in the entire universe, and you're probably all fantastic teachers, but you're more likely to remember the school trip to the planetarium.
Yes, and it's just how memory is and how teaching is, and you've got to kind of, you know, take the one on the chin. Really, that's how it is. So on that note, there we have run over as ever, but we've
brilliant.
Yep, we have left it on a reasonably high note. Thank you for giving me your time on it's not raining here, it's a reasonably dry Saturday evening. I'm now going to go and find out what set the fire alarm off. Hopefully.
I hope your kitchen and everything's okay up there.
We shall see. Thank you for your time. I'm now
Thank
going
you
to.
so much. I've really enjoyed it. Thank you.
That's okay. Yeah, we need to do that blog together at some point.
Yeah, let's do that again. I'll email you about that this week. And
Yeah, email me. Right. How am I? Do I press the right thing? I'm trying to press the right button now to do a close thing. Amateur hour all the way. Have I pressed it? Is it playing?
Yeah,
Look
it's
at that.
playing,
Check
You've
it
been
out.
listening to Teachers
Thanks so
Talk
much.
Radio.
This has been
Tune
Eugene
in
McFadden
live
and
and
Katrina
listen
Lowry.
back at ttradio.org. We look forward to hearing from you next time on Teachers Talk Radio.